Today's guest is Keely Hubbard, managing partner at Hubbard Capital Group and co-founder of Texas Legacy Vines. She's a former VP of sales who helped scale a company from 40 million to 220 million in annual revenue before pivoting into commercial real estate, where she's now raised more than $30 million for various projects. But what sets Keely apart isn't the numbers, it's the way she approaches capital raising. It's relational, psychological, and completely different from the traditional tactics that most operators are taught. Keely, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Leo. I'm excited to be here.
Definitely. So, just give the audience some context. What's your journey been like? How did you get here today?
Yeah, it's that's a hard question to answer. You think all the way back to where I started my career. So I've been in sales for 18 years. I'm a serial sales gal. I love it. And I think most people probably think that's crazy because most people hate salespeople. But I love sales and I love teaching sales. And I found a lot of success in my career in learning how to sell in a way that felt authentic to me. Right. I didn't feel like I was being the used car lot salesperson. And so built a really big career in doing that and became VP of sales of a financial education company and had, big sales teams that I just absolutely enjoyed coaching and mentoring. And that became my passion. And salespeople are also at the same time a wild group of people. There's a lot of HR challenges. It was a lot of travel. Like it just started wearing on me. I was on the road 22 days a month, traveling internationally. And I just got tired. I was like, I'm building somebody else's empire. So I decided to go off and do my own thing and start my own coaching and consulting firm. And then I got into commercial real estate and from there ventured into agriculture. So we are now one of the largest operators in Texas in the wine business. We've got a ton of acreage of beautiful wine grapes, close to 1,000 acres. And then we've got a custom crush winery here that we just grow grapes, sell them to Texas wineries, make wine. And it's a fun business. And I love the investor side of it. I love helping investors find these kind of, niche type investments that are outside of the stock market and things that most people don't realize they can put money into. So I've raised a lot of capital in that space. I'm close to 60 million now, a little bit more than
Wow.
that once we get to January. I've done, raised money for a tech startup as well. So I love alternative investments, but that has been my career and what got me to where I am today. And who knows what the future holds. I'm just kind of on this wild roller coaster ride with my hands up and open to all the opportunities.
I love it. I love it. And, what you just said, Keely, I mean, it just feels like you've lived like three different lifetimes, right? Like there's like so many different, like diverse paths. And it's kind of incredible to think that it's one person living through all of this.
I
So
kind
I
of
can't imagine, like,
I
yeah.
feel like I'm 70 or 80 some days, but it's
I
been
mean,
fun.
yeah, I mean, there's that real estate meme of it's like this old lady that's like I don't know, she looks like a grandma, like 70 years old, and she's like, oh, I love real estate. I'm like 25 years old or something. But
I can relate.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, when it comes to like real estate and doing all these things, a lot of it is like super fast paced. So were you always like this, like just like go 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 go, or like I mean, it sounds like it just like from your sales background, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I perform well under pressure, and so I have found myself in my own business creating pressure, right? Like waiting to the last minute to do something or when the stakes are high is really when I do well. So maybe I'm an adrenaline junkie, I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah.
certainly in corporate space, it was fast and furious. I mean, it was 6 to 7 days a week. It was a ton of travel. The stakes were high. I've always been commission only sales. So I love the idea of like creating something out of nothing. I think that's why I really enjoyed getting into business because business is the same thing, right? If we're not creating something, we're not paying the bills. And so I definitely enjoy the hunt of
Mm.
sales and of being in business. But I do enjoy that fast pace. And I think at the same time, the more that I've grown into my business, I've also learned to have like a relaxed intensity, if that makes sense. So it's
Hmm.
not always fast and furious. Like I'm intense about my goals and getting results, but I don't feel guilty for taking some downtime like I used to, right? It's like I shouldn't be taking downtime. There's so much to do. And it's like, well, you're not going to perform at your best if you can't learn to relax a little bit. And nobody wants to be around you either. If you can't if you can't learn to
Yeah.
relax.
Yeah, I think a lot of like entrepreneurs, where they get it wrong is that they don't know when to let go. Back in like humans, like we haven't really evolved that much from our caveman days. Like our brains, the chemical, like the biological makeup is still the same. So like a lot of us, like we were built to have a short period of high intensity followed by relaxing. But I think people are missing that nowadays. And that's what gets people burnt out or like all these issues come, right? Chronic
Yeah.
pain, like illnesses and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then you hate your business. It's like I left corporate and I took that same hustle mentality of what took me to the highest level of my career, and I brought that into my business, and I thought, "I'm supposed to be stressed. Like, if I don't have an eye twitch, you know, constantly, am I really working hard enough?"
Yeah.
Then you're like, "What is the point of leaving this insanity in corporate and bringing that same insanity to my business?" And so I hired a business coach and thought I was hiring her for marketing. And she gave me so much more than that. She gave me what I really needed, which was the more fun you have, the more joy you bring into your business, the more success you're going to find. And it's so true. So I'm very proud of the person I am today in terms of learning how to relax, learning how to not stress. Like it always works out. So why am I so stressed about it? Just because I think that's how I'm supposed to act because that's how things were in corporate. So I always figure it out. So why not enjoy the process and maybe a few less gray hairs along the way because I'm not stressing my body out at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And, like when you're stepping up to the occasion, I mean, it's one thing to like, know that things are going to be fine, but it's another to actually make it be fine. So like how do you step up? How do you like figure out what to do and like how do you like execute when the time really, matters a lot?
When my sales career really took off, my family bought a franchise of this company before I eventually became, down the road VP of sales. And when we bought this franchise, the stakes were extremely high, like very tight profit margins. Like we had one chance every month. It was like this 3 to 4 day period where we would make 80% of the revenue for the month. So it's like if you didn't perform in that, 4 to 5 day period, dad's not making payroll and the whole family's on payroll. So I didn't have the luxury of like playing small or being scared or like not totally diving in and making it happen. So, yes, it was high pressure and it's high stakes, but I think it forced me to do the hard things and the things that scared me. And these, small arenas that you jump into and you decide to conquer, you prove to yourself, okay, I can trust myself to when I have that pit in my stomach of, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? Like, this is terrifying and you prove to yourself, okay, we did it, right? So where's the next arena? All right, I conquered that. Let me do the next one. Like I'm in the middle of a huge raise right now. And I have the confidence and the conviction, like we're funding faster than we did last year because I raised 25 million last year. And I'm like, we can do this one because we did it last year. And last year was terrifying. So it's like you conquer these arenas and you figure out what you're capable of and you learn to trust yourself. And the decision of you being successful is made before you start. It's not like, well, let's see how this thing goes. Whatever it is that you're tackling in life, you decide from the beginning, come hell or high water, I'm going to get this thing done. And when you make the decision that it's already done and you've already won, you follow through with the actions that get you the results versus, half-assing it. I don't know how any other way to say that. I'm sorry, I probably can't cuss on your show, but I'm just
It's
the
all
tech.
good.
I tell it like it is. I'm like, if you go
Yeah.
in thing 50%, you're going to get 50% of the result. And then you're going to convince yourself, well, I knew I set my goal too high, or I knew it was the market, or I knew it was the industry. And it eats away at your self esteem. That's the problem is you can't look at yourself in the mirror and say that you really gave it your all.
hmm I think the phenomenon that you're saying happens to a lot of people. There's people that they play it cool, or they're like, oh, I never cared about that thing in the first place. But that's not what it takes to succeed. And you have this like athlete's mindset almost because like the way that you speak kind of reminds me of people like Tom Brady. To like step up and like do the work and like just put yourself out there, not be afraid to try and like fall on your face. But I mean, you usually don't fall on your face because like you try and you do the right things.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I have certainly fallen on my face plenty of times, not just in my
Yeah.
sales career, but especially when I left corporate. I've fallen on my face in business. I wiped myself out financially in 2017.
Hmm.
It's not like what is that quote? Being broke is a condition, being poor is a mindset. And they talk about these entrepreneurs that lose everything. Like it's so interesting because after this happened, I was on the plane. I can't remember where I was flying to. And the person that happened to be sitting next to me on the plane, I'm like walking towards my seat, is the man that I worked for when I was in college. Incredibly wealthy family, super successful, bond trader. And I sat down next, I hadn't seen him in like 6 or 7 years. And I'm like, have just gone through this crazy partnership breakup, totally leveled myself financially. And he was like, I'm proud of you, kid. He's like, you've been through your first blow up and you're barely 30 years old. Right? I'm like, okay, so maybe this is a good thing. And so getting back on your feet, you prove to yourself it doesn't matter what I go through. It doesn't matter. Like I gave it my all and it didn't work out. And yeah, I learned a lot and there were red flags that I ignored. And I've learned things that I'm going to take into my next venture of business, but I'm okay. And I'm always going to be okay no matter what happens. So I think it's that belief system that I'm not going to throw in the towel when
Mm,
I have something that is a perceived failure because it wasn't supposed to work out. And I see that now many years later. So I'm glad I went through it. But I'm also like it's another battle wound or another scar as a reminder of you made it through that, right? Like why not go for the next big thing? So it hasn't all
yeah.
been that's
Yeah,
for sure.
what people say on social media, like it's one thing to read it, but then it's another thing to live through it and like actually understand it. And what I was just thinking of when you said that is you can't lose if you don't quit. And entrepreneurship is about pain tolerance, right? You have to like you will get knocked. Like this is the world of business. You're in the arena of providing value. Like there's going to be a lot of figuring out how do you do that and like things that don't work and like you just have to pick yourself back up every time, keep swinging.
Yeah. One of my coaches said they don't serve champagne at pity parties, so don't stay too long. Right? And I'm always kinda giving myself that. It's like, "Okay, you got, like, 30 minutes to be pissed off about this, and then we
Yeah.
don't have time for that anymore, right? We gotta keep moving forward." So, I think it's shortening that amount of time that you let yourself be irritated about something and then keep pushing forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's resilience, right? Resilience is how long it takes for you to get back to the norm, after you've been knocked off the course.
Yeah.
So, what do you think has been, some of the things that mindset shifts that's been most useful to you, like that you've learned that are, hard won, that sort of like you had to go through it yourself, like being resilient, things like that.
There's we were talking about podcasts before you started the show, and I used to have a podcast called Standing in the Arena. And it was a big part of my brand because when I left corporate and I started a business with a partner, and I thought this was gonna be like the ultimate, right? Like I'm finally building this thing for myself, right? All this money was supposed to come in, we were gonna launch it, and it fell apart, like just totally fell apart. And I remember sitting there thinking like, "Man, maybe I'm not cut out for business," right? Maybe it was stupid to leave this cushy job and they were telling me like, "You're crazy. You're on track to be a C-suite executive in this company." And like, "Are you sure?" Right? Because I just quit. Like I was over it. And there were other issues within the company that is a whole nother story, of fighting through things to live to see another day. Maybe if we have time, we can talk about that. But I remember thinking like maybe I'm not cut out for business. And so I went to a Tony Robbins event. That's what everybody does when their life is in a crisis or a tailspin. Because at that time I was like, maybe I should hire a headhunter. I know I could go get another VP of sales role, right? That's like I'm built for that. But I just in my gut, I felt like that was throwing in the towel. Like, okay, you're gonna let one blow up. Yes, it was, very financially tough of what happened to me, but you're gonna let one thing knock you down like that and you're out of the game. So I think that whole standing in the arena concept, it's this question. Tony Robbins talks about like, what's your primary question that guides your life? And it's been this since 2017. It's are you sitting in the stands or are you standing in the arena? Because the stands are
Mm.
comfortable. There's snacks and there's kids and it's warm and you get to watch everybody else getting beat up on the field, but you will never have the self-respect that is required to truly be successful in business when you're sitting in the stands and you're throwing in the towel. Where you come alive and where you learn and you grow is when you're bloodied up on the field. And so I've just realized like I always want to be in the arena, even when it's terrifying, even when if I don't believe I have what it takes, right? Like all these big things that you go out to set out and conquer that scare you. It's like I don't know if I have what it takes, but I'd rather be in the arena than sitting in the stands and thrown in the towel.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean that's like the genesis of every entrepreneur, right? It's like, why am I building someone else's empire when I could do this on my own? And like, what makes a better story, right? Yeah, hey, like I worked for this team, it did a lot of great things, or like I did this myself, I fell on my face, I learned a lot, I helped a lot of people, and I gave a lot of value to
Hmm.
the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you decide to go into real estate from sales?
So I started when I left corporate and that other business blew up. I felt like there's a lesson there too, because I really feel like that was God saying, you're supposed to be the front person. Because when I left corporate, I partnered with somebody, and this partner was going to be the person that's out there, the face of the company, and I felt safe. Let me build behind the scenes. Let me sell, right? Let me build you up. And I feel like it was God saying, like, you're supposed to be the one. You don't need somebody else. This is supposed to be on you, right? And you have what it takes to build your own business and be the face of this. And so I started my own coaching and consulting firm. That was in 2020. And it took me some time after that blow up to figure out what I really wanted to do. COVID happens and everybody's like reevaluating, what am I doing with my my life? And so I launched the coaching business in 2020. And then around that time, well, a little bit before that, actually, so I grew up in a family of professional traders. My dad trades Forex futures, managed money, loved it. And then interest rates start shifting in the world and, compressing these currency pairs that he was trading. He's like, I can't pull money out of the market like I used to. So we need to get into real estate. And I'm like, all right, how do we sell real estate? Because I didn't know commercial real estate. And so I just, I follow my dad anywhere in business. He is, taught me how to be an entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur his whole life. And so we got into commercial real estate and then eventually got into agriculture. And that's how I made my way into this space and raising money. And I love helping investors. I love talking about investments. I love building wealth. And I also like taking risk when it comes to investments. So that's what brought me into commercial real estate from the financial markets and then eventually agriculture
Hmm.
and tech, right? And who knows what's next?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're all aligned by the core value of like, hey, people are looking for ways to make money, and how do you make them money, right? That's it. So for you to go from, sales to real estate to now agriculture, I mean, how did you transition into agriculture from, I mean, just general, I mean, you were doing multifamily before initially, right? And then you're like, probably not the best thing. There isn't a lot of, spread here, right?
Yeah. It's funny. We always talk about, the power of your network and meeting people and, being in real estate and talking to people because you never know what that's going to turn into. My dad and I were on a podcast and it was Whitney Sewell's podcast. We actually told him this at the best ever conference. We're like, you're the reason that we have this vineyard venture. But we were doing a podcast with him and he asked a question to my dad and he was like, what do you do in your free time? Like when you're not doing commercial real estate, you're not trading the markets, what do you guys do? And my dad mentioned that he's got a ranch and wants to put a vineyard on, runs cattle, right? But wants to put a vineyard on the ranch. And so, anyways, eventually our partner today, Mason Moreland, the Moreland family, heard that. And my phone number was on the website and he called it. And he's like, hey, you don't know me, but I got to talk to your dad. And he's like, can I have his number? I was like, sure. So I gave this stranger my dad's number. I called my dad. I was like, I just gave this guy Mason your number. He seems really nice, right? He wants to talk vineyards. And so that was what sparked it. They had brought California technology to Texas. They'd run their own vineyard for many years. They wanted to expand. And my dad had the business experience. I had the capital raising experience. And so the Hubbard family and the Moreland family, which are both obnoxious seventh generation Texan families. Like we just love Texas. We're those people. We all came together and we're like, let's build a legacy in Texas. And so that's where Texas Legacy Vines came from.
Wow. Yeah. Great name. Great name. So
Thank you.
just tell us, briefly about like the vineyards. Like I don't know anything about it. Like what's the draw behind it? What's the draw in a nutshell?
It's a long-term cash flow play, so it's one of the most profitable crops out there. Texas has a really big wine industry. Most people don't realize that. We're the fourth largest grape growing state in the US, and so we have a $20 billion wine industry here. And there's more demand for wine than there are grapes. And so we were like, we saw this, supply gap that we could fill. Our operational costs are very low. We can run 300 acres, just one of our vineyard blocks. We've got several, but we can run one 300-acre vineyard block with 3 guys and machinery, which is pretty incredible, which means we have big profit margins because we don't have a lot of hand labor involved, and we produce really good wine. And so I think that's the draw of why we got into the business. For investors, it's long-term cash flow. I mean, these vineyards will run for 45 years, they're cash cows. So investors that are willing to wait, it takes 5 years to stand up a vineyard and get to full harvest. They're not annual crops, so you plant them once. But then it'll run for many decades. And so we're also very careful about the people that we partner with because of that. Because I'm like, we're going to meet your kids and probably your grandkids. And this is a generational business, but it's a long-term cash flow thing. And who doesn't love the wine industry? I mean, it's so cool to stand in the middle of like 300 acres of vineyards. It's as far as the eye can see. It's a pretty incredible experience. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
soul behind it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a really long time horizon, huh? I mean, it's like 40 plus years. I mean, that's like second or third generation even.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Which is why, it's funny because like Mason and I are in the same, like Mason's a little bit younger than me, but our dads are
Mhm.
about the same age. And so we're definitely the younger generation. And then he's got 4 girls, that obviously will get involved in the wine business too. So we definitely plan on this being multi-generational.
So how did you just set up the whole like company together? I mean, like I would assume like you guys are, a few years into it, but then there's like another 35 years ahead of you. Like how do you align on that? Like how do you make sure it's a good partnership, and that you'll work together well?
I think you have to be aligned from like a values perspective. We're both families are very much faith-based, faith-oriented and want to use our money for good. The Morelands are very much into giving to nonprofits, and like it's more than just the money. It really is legacy. And so I think, building that relationship, which we did for over a year, and just building the relationship and underwriting it before we ever launched the first, capital raise. So I think it's time. I've learned that with partnerships before, like there's no need to rush into things. I vetted a tech deal for like 8.5 months and ended up pulling out at the very end, even after I'd raised many millions and returned all that money to investors. I'm like, this is not the right fit. So I think you have to give partnerships time to let them develop. The Morelands, I mean, they're like family to us. So I don't know, God knew, like, here's another obnoxious Texan family. Y'all come together and get into the wine business. That's
I
how it
love
happened.
it. Nice. So when it comes to like, I don't know, like evaluating partnerships, were there like a couple of characteristics that you watch out for, or like a couple of red flags that you're like, okay, that's yeah, probably not the best fit.
To spend time with people. Like, I want to see how people treat waiters at a restaurant. I want to see how they treat their family members and their kids, the dog. And we spent a lot of time vetting this partnership. I'm in a couple different tech deals, but the one that I walked away from, we spent a lot of time, and I started to see some red flags, towards the end. I think that these tech opportunities are the only deals that I've ever raised for where we're not the operators, because I'm kind of a control freak in that regards. I want to have control over the results, which we do in the vineyards, right? And other deals that we've done. But in these tech opportunities, we weren't. I was bringing the capital to the table along with other partners. And I want to make sure that anybody that is accepting investor capital has the right mindset and respect for investors, no matter what their check size is. And so that is really something that I look for. Like, are you investors first? Even
Mhm.
before your senior level executive team, are you investors first? Because if you're not, that's not going to play out long term, and that's not something I'm willing to take a risk on with my own reputation with investor
Yeah.
capital.
Yeah, and like we've seen all the news stories of people that put themselves first, and like things blow up. So yeah, I think that the world is just too big, and our lives are too long, and the internet just makes things too permanent for for it to be worth it.
Exactly, that's such a good point. The internet. Yep.
Yeah,
The
for
immutable
sure.
ledger.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to, building, Texas Legacy Vines, you obviously like built it from the ground up to where it is right now. I mean, it's like one of the state's largest vineyard operators. Like, what were, a couple of the challenges that you had to overcome, and like, what helped you make the most progress throughout all of this?
Yeah, our biggest challenge of what we're solving right now is we're about to push a lot of grapes into the supply chain, being one of the largest operators. And Texas is a really big wine industry. It's 20 billion and growing. But at the same time, like if you were to come to some of our industry conferences, these wineries, it's really mom and pop. It's hobbyists, people that love wine, right? That make really good wine, but aren't necessarily visionaries on like growing and building their own business. And so I think for us, it's figuring out how to make sure that our grapes get sold. And so figuring out, do we sell them to all these individual Texas wineries, or do we start focusing on big distribution plays, which is one of our big areas of where we're pushing right now? Whether it's, restaurants, there's some really cool restaurants that are coming to Texas that have wine clubs that are going to need distribution. We have all the grapes to do it. We have the winery to do it as well. Major league sports teams that are looking at creating a wine club. We can handle the entire back end operation of that. So I think you're in that phase where it's like, okay, in the next 2 to 3 years, we have a lot of tonnage coming into the market. How do we make sure those grapes get sold? So we have, we can execute on our investor return pro forma and also make sure that we're thinking for the long term. Do we build another vineyard or do we build another winery next? So it's a fun problem to have and a
Yeah.
fun challenge to solve.
Hmm. Interesting. So you're also working on how to sell the grapes. It's not like just through like one intermediary that just does everything else for you.
Yeah. It's individual Texas wineries. And there's some big wineries in Texas. But a lot of these wineries, it puts pressure on us as an operator when they're not making their decisions quickly. If it's California, grapes are under contract today for next year's harvest. In our industry, they're calling in June. Do you have any Pic Pool Blanc? And it's like, we're already in the midst of the growing season. This is a little crazy and last minute. We will continue to sell to those wineries. Absolutely. We have plenty of grapes to do that, but we can create more consistency and bigger distribution plays and possibly create another winery as well by pursuing those larger partnerships.
Hmm. Got you. So what's your goal with the vineyards? Like where do you want to take this? Like or like where do you both families want to take this?
It's funny because my dad, my dad and Mason's dad are like, we don't care what you guys do in 20 years, because we're going to be in our 90s. Mason and I definitely want to keep this thing going and keep building, keep these vineyards producing, keep creating. Like we'd love to take a Texas wine national. Some really good
Hmm.
wine that has won, gold medals, silver medals, and international wine competitions. Most people don't know anything about Texas wine because we can't even make enough to supply the demand in our own state. So it'd be fun to eventually take a Texas wine on a national scale. So we'll see. We
Yeah,
just want to produce cash flow long term for these investors and build a solid business doing it and some nonprofit work at the same time.
I love it. Sounds very exciting.
Yes, thank
And
you.
speaking of investors too, so I mean, how did you sort of compile or like aggregate, bring together all these investors to invest in your deals? I mean, I know like you and I like we've gone together and like we've had this whole program of how you do the sort of anti-sales sales framework, which I love because I hate sales too. Everyone hates salespeople, right?
Everybody does.
But yeah, I mean, like, people, like, they fall into the mistake that they try to be a salesperson. Like, conventional knowledge of, like, "Hey, how do you raise capital? How do you bring investors to the table?" It's like they do all the little things, but you do it very differently. So how do you do it?
I think it's not being transactional in your relationships. Like, I really look forward to meeting strangers because I never know what that's going to turn into long term. Like, I've met people 5, 6 years ago that I've just stayed in touch with that have become investors down the road. Like, when you actually have a deal that you think could fit their, investment portfolio, the relationship comes to fruition. Like, oh, this is why we met. Or, I've met a lot of people recently that I'm like, I don't understand where these connections are going to play in. I don't think they're investors, but they're opening the door to some major league sports teams for me for having conversations around wine clubs, right? And things that we're working on in the business. So I think it's being willing to talk to strangers and being willing to be a collector of people that you just add value to and treat really well and stay in touch with and build your business on coffees and lunches. And you will find out why those connections happened at some point. And sometimes it's a year down the road and not trying to force it. Let me just pitch everybody on a vineyard. Not everybody wants to invest in a vineyard. I don't know, right? That's okay. But there's probably other things that we can add value and build business and relationships on in the future. So, and I'm not a people person either, which I think most people are shocked to hear.
Yeah.
I'm just more of like a one-on-one, introvert. Like if you were to like my worst nightmare, this happened to me not too long ago. One of my investors and really good friends, her husband had a retirement party. And my best friend was going to go with me to this retirement party. And then something happened with one of her daughters last minute. She's like, I can't go. It's like, oh my God, I have to go to this party by myself. I don't know anybody. Like, I know nobody, but I have to go, right? Because this is like a good friend of mine. And, anyways, I'm not the type of person that like walks into a room full of strangers and meets everybody. So it's uncomfortable for me. And hopefully that gives people hope that have been very successful in sales and not really the best, work the room type of a person. So it's the willingness to, okay, I'm going to take my, AirPods out of my ears on the plane. I'm going to talk to somebody. And I've met investors. I told you this story. I met an investor in the ocean in the Caymans. We're just there vacationing, everybody out in the ocean, being willing to smile at somebody and have a conversation with a stranger. And you never know what it'll turn into. And in that case, it turned into an investor and just a great connection to have long term.
I think it's the willingness to do the thing. Because like I definitely felt that too. Like, when you're out there, you're like, oh, should I talk to that person? Should I make that comment? And like a lot of the times, like, you talk yourself out of it. But, for you, you just do it, right?
Yeah. My sales coach, this is funny. So when my family owned the franchise and I was selling for the family, I had to make cold calls and I hated it. Like I absolutely hated it. And he was like, Keely, you don't have to love it. Like you don't have to, you just have to do it. If you don't talk about your business, you're not gonna have one. If you don't talk about this company, you're not gonna have sales at the end of the month. So it kind of helped me realize like, okay, there's gonna be parts of my business that I have to do that I maybe don't enjoy, but you're not gonna enjoy every aspect of it. You have to. You have to talk to people. You have to talk to strangers. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and meet people. And so find a way to do it where it's easy to win. You don't have to go and stay for 3 hours at a networking event. Show up and say, I'm going to be here for 45 minutes. And that's how I'm going to gamify it. And 45 minutes is all I can handle with the week that I've had. So I'm going to go in here and see if I meet somebody. And you'll surprise yourself. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm actually enjoying this. I'll stay a little bit longer. So find a way to win, even with the stuff that you don't enjoy.
Yeah, and funny you mentioned that because I was at a networking event yesterday. I feel like I might be similar to you. I'm also an introvert, but then like I'm sociable. I know how to socialize. And like I've been to a sales background. I sort of like know that, but I didn't want to go. I don't like to go to these events, but I just force myself to go. I'm like, okay, just do it. And so I have this little app that I vibe coded. It kind of like gamifies everything. So every time I do something good. I give myself $5 or something. Or like, if I do something bad, I like take money away. And then like that little money goes to like guilt-free spending. So it's like, oh, hey, I have $20. I can go treat myself to, I don't know, some takeout or something, which is what brings me happiness. So
That's
I,
amazing.
I did that, gave myself $10 for going to the event and, actually caught up with some people that I haven't spoken to in a year. There might be a deal that we can do together. So like, you really never know.
Yeah. You never know. It's like a scavenger hunt. There could be somebody worth gold in that room that I haven't met yet. And I don't even know why I need to meet him, but maybe it's going to turn into something incredible 2 years down the road. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think just gamifying everything. So when I went from, having a job to not having a job, like being an entrepreneur, right? It's like super unstructured and your how do you call it? Your discipline gets tested
Hmm.
because there is no structure to your day. You can do anything you want to.
Yeah.
So I try to put as much structure into things as possible into my day, try to gamify things, but might be systems overload sometimes. I know you probably don't have as many systems, right?
I've tried it all and I've literally blocked out like in every piece of my calendar, right? 15-minute increments. Like this is time for lunch and this is time to go for a walk and this is for marketing, right? And it felt overwhelming. I feel like I'm kind of more of a willy-nilly type person versus like very structured, but I still get it all done. I think what I had to break was I'm supposed to sit here for 8 hours because if I'm not doing that, then I'm going to lose money, opportunity in my business. And I didn't like that feeling. It felt like I was being held hostage, like I felt in corporate. I feel like I need to have a little bit more freedom. I'm like, it always gets done. And how cool is it that I could get it all done in 20 hours this week instead of 40? I don't have to sit here and grind it out for 40 hours if it doesn't take that long. My business coach taught me that. She was like, what if you could make more money than you did in corporate, working less hours and have more fun? And I was like, that's not possible. Because we convince ourselves all these crazy things like, well, if that's what it took to get to that level in corporate, like brace yourself. I'm about to age 20 years, in a period of 4 years because that's what I'm supposed to do. And then you're like, I have nothing left to give. I'm exhausted. Like there's nothing else to sacrifice. And you just burn yourself out. What's the point of it? So I've really proven to myself, like, okay, it doesn't have to be that hard. There's these like timeline jumps and these opportunities that you get that can push you there quicker. And then once you realize that's possible, it's like, huh, maybe there's something to downtime. Maybe the more downtime I have, the more creative I am to find the
Hmm.
timeline jumps.
Hmm. That is interesting. So, I mean, that sort of encapsulates, what you mentioned before, which is like giving yourself a bit more grace, right? I think, a lot of people are very hard on themselves, and it's like, hey, look, if I didn't get through like my 15 task checklist, like, I didn't win the day or something, right?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
like, how do you figure out what to do, what will move your needle forward, and how do you follow through on it?
Yeah. I think you have to figure out what works for you. Like I've read, what's the book, Rod? Is it the 5 a.m. More?
Oh,
Do you know what I'm talking about?
um, the 5 a.m. club,
Yeah. So
that one?
I forget the exact name of the book, but like I've read that, and I'm like, that's not me. I hate that. For me, like I don't want to do anything. I don't want to talk to anybody business related until 11. That's just my new rule. Cause I'm like, my mornings to me are sacred. I want time to sit there and enjoy my coffee and look at the Christmas tree, right? And I want to like take my dog for a walk and do my affirmations and like not feel like it's wake up and go, go, go. Cause that's what it felt like in corporate. So it's giving myself permission to have slower mornings. It all gets done. It always gets done. And as entrepreneurs, we're oftentimes doing stuff on the weekend, and that's okay. It's not like I have to cram it all into one spot. So I think it's like having the to-do list. I mean, I'm looking at like to-do list, right? All right,
Yeah.
sitting right here.
Yeah.
It'll all get done eventually. It doesn't all have to get done today, right? So it's like I've learned to figure out what's my personality type, how can I best operate in that where I love my business? Because the more that you love it and you enjoy it, the more success you're going to find. When you burn
Yeah.
yourself out, no creativity left to build and grow the thing. And then you don't attract the right people to you as well, whether it's clients or investors when you're totally burnt out. So
Hmm.
we always have enough grit. It's this grit and grace balance. Every entrepreneur out there has enough grit. That's the problem is we use so much grit that we exhaust ourselves and we're so wiped out, we have nothing left to give. So I'm just
Yeah.
trying to bring the pendulum a little bit further to the other side on the
Yeah.
grace.
It's the duality of things, right? It's like the whole yin and yang thing, right? You have to push, but then also let go. So yeah, I think like conventional knowledge and like when most people make that transition from being a W-2 or like a regular worker into an entrepreneur, what they don't understand is that like they don't have to just like clock in, clock out and like do the activities. You can actually, as long as you get the right results, it's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. So about a month ago, I had surgery and I had downtime for like 10 days. I was like, I'm not going to do anything because I just need to relax and recover. And I did it in Florida in this like beautiful home with like multi-million dollar yachts parked right outside. Was on the water
Nice.
in Florida, because 'cause I'm like, I wanna be in, like, a high vibrational area when I have this downtime, and what's interesting is towards the end of that period of time that I was there, I had a breakthrough idea. I was just sitting there in the chair, looking out the window, not, like, scrolling Instagram, checking email, write content. I was like, "I'm not doing any of that, I'm just gonna sit here," and I had this incredible breakthrough idea that I would have not gotten if I was in, to-do list mode and make every
Hmm.
second and every minute count. So I really think there's a lot to this whole like thinking time. Keith Cunningham talks about that a lot. I met him at Business Mastery
Hmm.
for Tony Robbins' event, and he's an incredible businessman. But he has a couple books, chairman of the board, and then a book that's called The Road Less Stupid. And The Road Less Stupid, he talks about the fact that entrepreneurs don't spend enough time thinking, like just sitting and thinking. And so he says, have a chair in your house that is all you do is you sit there and think. You're not watching TV. You're not looking at your phone. You will find the answers to your problems and you will get creative when you take the time to just relax and give yourself space to come up with those ideas or solutions to your problems.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that, so thinking, the ability to think clearly, that's one of the most valuable skills now. I mean, especially with AI coming about, right? Like, it just it helps you execute that much easier. But your critical thinking and like thinking from the right place, that's original. That's very hard to come by. So I think for you to sort of prioritize that and like take the time off, go to a place where you're sort of in a different headspace. That's actually important, but it's counterintuitive. Like nobody from a logic-based mind would think like, yeah, let me go to Florida, let me do this, let me hang out there, right? And then like that's your next $1 million idea.
Yeah, it's like, let me do it where I can be productive and be near my computer and everything's plugged in. It's like work, work, work. It just, it for me, for whatever reason, if I can get into a location, like I plan in the new year, I do this every year, to do business planning in, I call it a high vibrational location. So when it's for me, I love Orange County. So whether it's Florida, like I'm trying to get out of Texas because Texas, our weather's wild. At least it's not 100 degrees right now, but we have crazy weather here. I'm like, let me go somewhere where it's a little bit more mild. So I love going to Orange County, California. And this is where, when I was in corporate, I was out there twice a month because that was where it was headquartered. And so I'd fly in and out quite a bit. And there's a beautiful resort there that I love. And I remember sitting on the terrace of that resort when I first came into corporate as their lead sales trainer. And that is where I wrote down in my affirmations, I will be vice president of sales before I'm 30 years old. And it was like that terrace is where all these ideas have come up, these big, what do they call them? The BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goals.
Hmm.
For whatever reason, looking at the ocean in this big resort, right? Just beautiful location. So I like to go there to think about the future and like, what do I want in my life? And it's different than sitting here at home.
Hmm. Yeah. Now that you mention it, like you do utilize, you leverage the environment a lot, which I don't think most people are doing. They're just like trying to think of these ideas from their office or something, but like it's not going to come to them, right? I mean, you go to these country clubs and these hotels to do work and just hang out, right? And like you end up getting more done.
I want to be around money. I think a lot of people are afraid to say that. There's nothing wrong with that. Like you need to want to make a lot of money if you want to make an impact on this world. You can't help anybody if you're broke. I want to be surrounded by wealth and money. I just last week, I had like a 3 hour break and I put my little dog Darla in the car with me and I was like, we're going to Highland Park. And I just want to drive around and look at $20 million homes because I feel different when I'm there. I go have lunch at Highland Park Village quite a bit. I overhear conversations that I wouldn't hear if I were sitting at home by myself. So I like to be in those environments that force me to think bigger and play bigger. I want to see people that have way more money than I do. I want to learn from that. I want to emulate that. Like you'll never get there if you can't see yourself there first. And most people shy away from that like, "Oh, I don't belong there," or "That's out of my league." Like, "No, I want a seat at the table. I want to be the brokest person at the table. Those are the tables I want to be a part of because show me how you did it, right? That's how you get to the next level." So I think you have to leverage your environment and push yourself. Yeah, it's like I could stay home and it's a lot easier to do that, but why not go to California? Why not go to Florida? Why not go somewhere where my brain switches and I start thinking different and bigger about my life?
Yeah, the world is just too big. It's sad that, most of us just go through autopilot and like we have our little routine and like that's the only world that we know. And our circle of comfort gets smaller and smaller as we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I've this is probably since I left corporate is where I really learned this that if I sit at home and try to work, I think part of it's ADD, right? Or ADHD, whichever one it is. I'm a busybody. I got to move around, but I would much rather be at like a private club where I'm seeing people pull up in very expensive cars. I'm seeing big meetings happening versus sitting at Starbucks and trying to remote work. So
Hmm.
I've met a lot of incredible people from doing that as well. So maybe that's a little secret advantage that people should try in switching up their environment. Go somewhere
Yeah,
that makes you feel uncomfortable.
for sure. I mean, I think money is a tool. If you think about it in physics terms, right? You have energy, you have kinetic potential energy and then you have energy. So money is just potential. What you do with the money determines if it's good or bad or whatever. But like the act of money itself is not. And when you go to places with money, there's more potential to do things. And there's people looking for opportunities. There's people looking for connections. And like you meet just different kinds of people there. And
Yeah.
it's people with more potential.
There's so much head trash around money that we all have from our childhood, people that were in authority figures, not blaming our parents or teachers or professors or whoever put these ideas in our head, but we all have head trash that we have to work through to get to the next level in life. And I think a lot of people have such negative connotations of money. I don't want like, and so they sabotage their success. I don't want to get to this level because then people in my family are going to think that I'm a snob, right? And people that have money are snobs. And so they sabotage themselves and they keep themselves at this, mediocre level that they're really not happy with because they've been programmed to believe that money's bad. And like you said, it's just a tool. I just want to be the vessel. Let money flow through me for good. But I can't help anybody if I don't have the desire to make a lot of money. And that's where it begins, is you have to have the want to make a lot of money and not think that there's anything wrong with it.
Exactly. And what I love about being an entrepreneur as well is that you're literally paid to improve yourself and to get in different places and to just change the way that you view in the pursuit of giving more value to the marketplace. And then they reward you with more money, which then you can do to, you know, spend it on whatever you think is good by your judgment, which hopefully, if you're a good person, you'll put it to good things.
Right. They say money just magnifies who you already are. If you're generous, it'll make you more generous.
Hmm.
I guess that's why
Yeah.
I don't feel a guilt about it because I feel like if God gives us this talent where we have the ability to, like you're doing, pull together incredible investments in mobile home parks, right? Not everybody can do that. And you've been given this talent. It's like it is your responsibility to multiply the money and to spread it and to use it for good. And if we just squander that, like what kind of life are we living? This is not a dress rehearsal. We're only here for so many years or so much time. So I feel like it's a obligation that if we have the talent to use it to make more money, to spread it and use it for good.
Yeah. I think my goal in life is to shine the brightest form of light. And how do you do that, right? I mean, it's like super philosophical, super woo, but then you sort of work your way backwards and like everything is connected, right? Like you have to have a good impact to the world. You want to be a net positive. You want to leave it in a better place than you found it. And how do you do that? You need money. How do you get money? You have to get value. How do you get value? You become a better person yourself, right? And then it all starts from like taking the action, believing you can do it, and just picking yourself back up and just like going at it and like never giving up.
Yeah, and that's something else too that I really learned at a Tony Robbins event. I've been to so many of them. I started in early 2018. But he talks about like what really makes you feel fulfilled is growth and contribution, that you're constantly growing yourself and you're giving to others. And all the other things that I leaned on in earlier years of my life and my career is why I constantly felt like I just wasn't happy. It's like the title didn't make me happy. The money didn't make me happy. The car didn't make me happy. The house didn't make me happy. And once I left that environment and I started growing and doing the scary stuff and building a business and feeling like I was making an impact, I'm the happiest I've ever been. But it's not about me, it's about what I can do for others, what I can give to others, how people feel when they leave my presence. What is the vibration that I'm giving off to other people when I talk to them? And I'm not perfect, but I think if you were to talk to my family, having been in a family business, I'm very proud of who I've become today compared to the Keely of like 2010 who was stressed and just not focused on the right things in the family business. I've grown and I've learned so much through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you go from a mindset of what can I take into what can I give, that just changes everything.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah. I wish we could have a longer conversation, with you. Like, I know we like jump all over the place, but you know what? Success leaves clues. And like, there's just so much good conversation that came out, in this past like hour or so. And I'm sure like a lot of people will get a lot of value out of it too.
Thank you. It's
So,
flown by. I could talk to you all day, Leo.
yeah.
We have the same threads, right, that make up like what we believe about the world and what we want to give to the world. And so thank you for having me on and being willing to have the
Yeah.
conversation.
Absolutely. So just to wrap up, like how can folks get in contact with you? Who are you trying to meet? Like how can we help you?
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I mean, listen, if you love wine and you want to say you own a vineyard, or you're just like curious how the whole thing works, I'd say just reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn or you can just shoot me an email. It's Keely at texaslegacyvines.com. But yeah, other than that, like anything that I can do, share, give, I'm happy to. And I love talking to strangers. I love meeting new people that are like minded and especially entrepreneurs that can share war stories as we encourage each other to keep going.
Yeah. So final question. What is something you wish you knew 10 years ago or that you can tell yourself 10 years ago?
Hmm, that's such a good question. I think it's to be more present and, like, it always works out. It always works out in the end. So, like, this internal dialogue and this internal battle that we have that makes us not present with our families and the people that we love, it's not necessary. I remember a Christmas when I was working for corporate and I had 2 phones, okay, and it was 7 days a week, and CEO was calling on the 24th of Christmas and, Christmas Eve, right? And I was just like, I was so stressed out. I was so overwhelmed because and it's not the CEO's fault. I let this happen to me. And I remember, those movies where like everything's a blur in the background. You hear people laughing and talking, and there's the Christmas tree and the table, but I
Yeah.
wasn't present. And you make sure you smile every few seconds to act like you're engaged. I wasn't there. I mean, that whole period of my career in corporate is a blur. And I have regrets about that. So I think that if I could go back and say, like, it doesn't have to be like that. Like, you don't have to be stressed through the process because it always works out in the end, and to be more present with the people that I really care about. I think that's been my biggest lesson to date, that you'll make it happen. So, quit worrying about it. My dad says, "Quit borrowing trouble from tomorrow." I'm like, "Dad,
Hmm.
that's good, right? That's a lot of
Yeah.
wisdom. Be
Yeah.
present today. It's all gonna work out, and it's all gonna be fine, and I'm not willing to stress myself out over it anymore."
Wow. I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you for your energy. I love it. Thank you for your wisdom and thank you for coming on.
You're amazing, Leo. Thank you for having me.